King and Conqueror, Series 1, Episode 1 Recap. The story opens in 1066, Normandy, against the bloody backdrop of the Battle of Hastings. The air is thick with smoke and cries of war as Harold Godwinson, James Norton, and William the Conqueror, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, faced one another, two men destined to clash over England's crown. But before this legendary confrontation, the series takes us years back, when alliances were still being forged, betrayals were brewing, and England's throne hung by a fragile thread. A carriage rattles toward camp, its wheels dragging through the mud of war. Inside sits Matilda, Clement's Poesi, heavily pregnant, guarded by a soldier and a lady-in-waiting. She lifts the carriage shade, only to see the chilling sight of bodies floating in the river, a grim reminder of the cost of ambition. Nearby, Fitzosborne, Osgeir Gunnarsson, a seasoned bodyguard, tends to William's wounds after battle. Despite his injuries, William rushes to greet Matilda. She wastes no time. Word has arrived that his cousin Edward has been chosen as the new King of England. She reveals Edward has invited William to attend his coronation, but William is suspicious. He claims he's never spoken to Edward and questions her motives. She presses him, what does he want with the English king? Meanwhile in Wessex, Harold Godwinson and a guard stumble upon a grisly scene, bodies strewn across the Dover Road, victims of what Harold calls a massacre. Among the wreckage lies an overturned wagon with a sword trapped beneath its wheel. When freed, Tostig examines it and declares it Mercian in origin. Confused, Harold wonders aloud, why would Mercia break the peace agreement, knowing it would cost them their wealth to the crown? He keeps the sword, troubled. At the stables, Harold finds his brother Sweyn dressing after bedding a bride. Harold rebukes him, warning that their father Godwin, Earl of Wessex, will be furious. Sweyn brushes it off, but Harold insists he must back him when they inform their father about the Mercian raid. Tostig's mockery earns him a violent shove against the wall from Sweyn, who threatens him to keep silent. Back in Normandy, William confronts his half-brother Odo emerging from the forest. Odo claims he was relieving himself, but William accuses him of cowardice, of hiding until the battle was decided. Odo throws back William's promise to their dying mother, that he would protect him. A horn announces the arrival of King Henry of France, Jean-Marc Barre. William greets him warmly, while Matilda watches cautiously. Henry claims he has come because word spread that William captured Gaius Brion, but Fitzosborne warns Guy may have escaped. Inside a tent, they find a wounded man, claiming Guy tore his arm down to the bone to free himself. William inspects the blood, on his face, not the shackles. Seeing through the lie, he stabs the man in the stomach. Henry criticizes William's rashness, but promises his own men will hunt Guy. In Wessex, Harold brings the Mercian sword before Godwin. He insists this proves Mercian aggression, but Godwin dismisses it, calling the raiders simple bandits. Sweyn sides with their father. Harold pleads for a chance to prove Mercia's betrayal. Godwin retorts that to do so would mean crossing borders and sparking civil war. Harold argues Mercia has already broken the peace. In anger, Godwin slams the sword onto the table and looms over him. He reminds Harold of his influence. He is the reason Edward wears England's crown. Edward married Harold and Sweyn's sister, solidifying Wessex's bloodline in power. Nothing, Godwin warns, can endanger that. Afterward, Harold glares at Sweyn as he takes the sword. Their mother Gaitha, Claire Holman, comforts Tostig and criticizes Godwin for provoking Harold. She suggests Harold may be right. Godwin insists Harold's fear is both a strength and a weakness, useful in war, but dangerous in peace. Henry asks William if he'll attend Edward's coronation. Matilda points out that Edward is his cousin. William insists Edward will soon be his enemy, despite his mother, Lady Emma, Juliet Stevenson, once ruling as queen twice over. He predicts Emma will lose power once Edward is crowned. Matilda disagrees. Emma is his power. Henry, skeptical, recalls William's father, Robert I, Duke of Normandy, never trusted the English. He boasts that he, Henry, is William's true protector. Matilda urges William not to make England their enemy. Surprisingly, William agrees. That night, Henry drinks in celebration, while William remains grim. Survival itself, he says, is victory. Matilda, suspicious, wonders why Henry came just to confirm Guy's death. She urges William to go to England while she searches for Guy. He thanks her with a kiss. In Essex, Edith's sister to Harold and Sweyn tends to the men, refilling their cups. Discussion turns again to the raid. Edith insists the sword was indeed Mercian and points to a moneyer and Ockley, who is known for striking thin-pressed silver. If the bandits were paid in such coin, Mercia is behind it. Harold tells her to inform Godwin. She reminds him she is not of their blood. He reassures her she is family, as much as any of them. They share a kiss, and she takes him to see their children. Harold promises her that if Godwin tries to force another marriage on him, he'll resist. Edith warns him he always gets what he wants. On Dover's roads, William and Fitz-Osbern are ambushed. Fitz takes an arrow, and William is left to fight desperately. Just as defeat looms, Harold and his men arrive, cutting down the bandits. Harold retrieves a sack from a fallen raider. William, grateful but suspicious, asks who he is. He warns Harold the bandits' last raid was a massacre. For now, their paths part. In London, William meets Edward face to face. Old enemies and new foes. Edward greets him with a smile. Emma comments that William resembles her late brother Robert. She invites him to supper. Back in Wessex, Harold produces the Mercian coins he took from the dead bandits. Freshly minted, they confirm Mercian involvement. Godwin dismisses this as arrogance. Furious, Harold asks what proof he needs. Godwin demands he swear to abandon the claim. Later, Harold shows Edith the coins, confessing he lied to his father. He promises her their children will always come first. At supper in London, Edward and William share memories, joined by Queen Gunhild, Bro Bragison. Emma provocatively declares her son Athol, Harold Dura Stephenson, should have been king. Edward bristles. He was born to rule. Emma praises William's strength and declares he will protect her crown. Edward snaps that it is his crown. The tension is palpable. Later, Edward reveals a relic, Saint Swithin's finger encased around his neck. Claiming to speak with both saint and God, he warns William to move his ships from Dover, a gift of land. Privately, William regrets not listening to Henry's counsel and orders Fitz-Osbern to relocate to Pevensey. Meanwhile, Guy of Brienne is captured. Under Matilda's order, his right hand is severed. Under torture, he reveals a secret. William's father, Duke Robert, was murdered on King Henry's orders. Robert had sought alliance with Lady Emma, which terrified Henry, so Guy acted as his assassin. News spreads. Henry's troops gather on Normandy's borders. His plan is clear: invade Normandy and kill William. At Edward's coronation, Emma introduces William to the great earls of England, Siward of Northumbria, Barn Henriksen, Morcar of Mercia, Alander Moore, and Godwin himself. Harold recognizes William from Dover. Gunhild, fevered, is absent. Godwin insists she still be crowned queen. Emma manipulates Edward, warning of Godwin's temper. Elsewhere, Gunhild secretly reveals to Edith a shocking truth. Lady Emma ordered the Mercian attacks to provoke Wessex into breaking the peace. Her aim is to cut Wessex out of succession entirely. At court, Emma coldly declares England's heir will bear no Wessex blood. Godwin protests. A promise was made. Emma dismisses him as untrustworthy. Sweyn erupts, calling it a disgrace, but is dragged out after drawing his sword. Emma spits that she will force Godwin to his knees. Outside, Harold confronts William. He accuses him of bowing to Edward too easily. William insists Harold is arrogant, refusing to respect the crown. Their fragile connection shatters when William warns him to leave Dover. Emma, in private with Edward, asks how he feels as king. He admits the crown fits well. She smiles coldly. By the time she is finished, Edward's enemies will be destroyed, and history will forget the Godwins. In Dover, riots break out. Harold confronts Godwin. "This is your doing," he accuses. He warned him of Mercia, but Godwin refused to listen. Harold rides off to stop the chaos. Meanwhile, Matilda, traveling by carriage, shares Guy's confession with William. Henry ordered Robert's murder. Normandy is already lost. Henry's men march from the east. Their only choice is escape. The episode closes with the looming specter of invasion, Normandy on the brink of collapse, Wessex on the edge of betrayal, and England's crown already dripping with blood. The Sins of the Father, Episode 2, King and Conqueror. The episode opens with a heavy silence. Godwin, Jeff Bell, sits, lost in memory. His thoughts drift back to a grim moment by the water, when he murdered Ethel. The weight of that act lingers on him. Harold Godwinson, James Norton, checks in saying he's heard King Edward has agreed to a private audience. Godwin confirms it. They cannot go to war, so he must trust this chance. His plan? Let Edward believe he holds the reins while secretly discovering his true intentions. Confident, Godwin reminds Harold he has talked his way out of worse. He warns his son to be rested and sharp. When they're alone, Gaitha, Claire Holman, points out that Harold was the only one to ask what his father needed. Godwin explains Swain never thinks he should ask, and Tostig doesn't even know how. To Gaitha, Harold's question means something. Elsewhere, Edith chats with Harold about Magnus and Estrid, teasing him and calling him a tubber. She asks if they'll be separated, but Harold reassures her. His family will not be divided. He sees Edward's summons as a hopeful sign. Godwin interrupts, telling Harold he'll ride beside him today. On their journey, Godwin speaks of balance, how the crown has always been countered by the three great earls. The crown balances them, but control rests with the earls. That balance, he insists, must be restored. Harold, however, disagrees. He believes true stability requires one ruler making the right decisions for all. Meanwhile, Tostig Ellider Ford mocks the idea of riding behind Harold, speaking with Swain, Elliot Cohen. Back home, Gaitha questions Edith, who admits she's been pregnant for about 2 months. Gaitha urges her to keep it a secret. Harold has birdies enough without this added weight. In London, the moment of truth arrives. Harold warns Godwin that Morcar, Elander Moore, is present despite the promise of a private audience. King Edward delivers his verdict. Godwin is guilty of willfully breaking the peace. Lady Emma declares that everything Godwin holds must be forfeited to the crown. Godwin protests it was not him who broke the peace, but Edward is resolute. Forfeit your lands and accept exile, or face war not only with the crown, but also with the armies of Mercia and Northumbria. Godwin, cornered, asks if his people will remain safe should he yield. Lady Emma promises they will, but only if he swears never to reclaim his lands. Reluctantly, Godwin accepts exile. Harold cannot stand silent. He blurts out that it was Mercia who broke the peace. Emma cuts him down, proclaiming Wessex belongs to the king. Edward grants the Godwins 1 week to leave England. Emma twists the knife. She's taking everything, though she offers Godwin a way back. Return Ethel alive, and all will be restored. Meanwhile, in Normandy, Fitzosborne and Duke William Nikolaj Coster-Waldau seek a way through as Henry's men swarm the land. Fitzosborne advises waiting for nightfall. Nearby, Matilda, Clemens Poissy, heavy with child, struggles as her labor begins. King Henry of France, Jean-Marc Bearer, learns Normandy has fallen, though William escaped. He assumes he'll flee north to Flanders, Matilda's kin, and orders William's death before he reaches safety. As night falls, Matilda gives birth to a boy. William, instead of rejoicing, walks away, refusing to hold the child. Matilda calls his name, but he ignores her. Fitzosborne tells William he understands. Choices made on the run are dangerous. William confesses. Had the baby been a girl, she could have gone unnoticed. A boy, however, makes them a target. He declares they'll ride at first light. Back in England, Morcar presses Edward and Emma. He reminds them Mercia was promised Wessex in return for provoking the Godwins. Emma counters, "In the hearts of the people, Godwin will always be Earl of Wessex. If Morcar truly wants power, he must kill Godwin. Power, she reminds him, is not given, it is taken, sometimes with blood." At the Godwin home, Queen Gunhild, Beau Brogison, squabbles with Sweyn over who is suffering more, their spat turning into a food fight. Gaitha interrupts, cutting through the tension. Godwin announces their plan. They will sail for Flanders. Harold pushes for battle, but Godwin refuses. Count Baldwin has given his word and war would bring Wessex to ruin. Sweyn argues it should be his decision, but Godwin asserts his authority. Harold asks what Emma meant about Aethel. Gunhild answers bluntly, "Godwin killed him." She reveals Emma's words, that Godwin had sworn to put Aethel on England's throne, yet betrayed and murdered him. Godwin defends himself. He swore to put the rightful heir on the throne, but Aethel would never have married a Godwin. Edward, though weak, was the only path to save Wessex. Killing Aethel was necessary. When he leaves, Gunhild tells her siblings how Godwin lured Aethel to the beach as a friend, then gouged out his eyes. The family erupts in argument until Harold silences them. Gunhild resolves to stay behind. She knows the risk. Emma may kill her, but she insists she can convince Edward to give them an heir. "This is not the end," she says. Harold, grim, replies, "This is England. Someone will die. Everything will change." Later, Harold comforts Edith in private. She hides her pregnancy, saying nothing. Across the sea, William reaches Flanders. He expected more, but Fitzosborne explains Count Baldwin prefers a court always on the move. William approaches Baldwin pleading for shelter. Baldwin greets Matilda warmly, meeting his grandson. He declares all are welcome in Flanders. William recounts Henry's invasion, insisting it was because Henry killed his father. Baldwin shrugs. Henry has killed many fathers. For him, it's just a game of power. William sees it differently. The same ruthless game now threatens his son. Back in England, Morcar captures Edith. She warns him Harold will come, but Morcar shrugs her off, saying Emma will decide her fate. Watching from the shadows, his sister Margaret, Indy Lewis, asks, "Who is Edith?" Morcar dismisses her as nobody. Godwin tries to reassure Harold that Edith will be on the boat, but Harold demands proof. Godwin admits Harold was right all along. He should have listened to him. Elsewhere, Fitzosborne tells William that Odo has been spotted. William knows Henry will never stop. He orders Fitzosborne to bring a family to take his child far away. Matilda must not know until it's done. Margaret offers Edith water, quietly noting she suspects Edith is pregnant. Edith begs her to keep it a secret. At court, Lady Emma fumes over Morcar's reckless charge. She calls him an idiot, saying the Godwins scattered because of his blundering. Edward muses that perhaps it was God's mercy. Emma disagrees. This is punishment. They were fools to rely on others. She urges prayer to find their way forward. Meanwhile, William secretly hands his baby, now named Robert, to a family chosen by Fitzosborne. Matilda returns, only to find her child missing. She discovers William holding the boy and learns of his name. Elsewhere, Thane Thomas prepares to flee with Gaitha, but Harold refuses to leave. He's just learned Edith has been captured and he won't abandon her. Gaitha begs him to stay calm for his children, but their resolve is tested as Mercian soldiers appear on the horizon. The episode closes with tension mounting, Godwin scattering, Edith in captivity, and William's newborn son thrust into peril before he's even drawn breath. The sins of the father weigh heavily, and the storm is only beginning.